Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time round, we're checking out Star Wars Chibi Rebellion. This is a Doom mod that puts you in the shoes of a rebel fighter on an icy planet that isn't quite Hoth, but might as well be, and all of your enemies, allies, and NPCs are rendered in Chibi super deformed style. And this mainly means that a lot of them look like they're just suffering from severe back problems. But regardless of that, at the start of any fresh run in Chibi Rebellion, you'll need to make your way to Hologram Layer here to get your new objective before getting on your merry way. And it's usually worth checking out the base here before you get right into the meat of it, because you'll find things like the med bay here, and you'll also find an item shop at the back where you can purchase an additional weapon right off the bat, the blaster rifle, and you can also come back here for additional ammunition. But once you're all loaded up and ready to go, it's simply a case of heading back to the entrance of the base here, hopping on your speeder bike, and embarking on a brand new adventure. Now, one of the really cool things about Chibi Rebellion is that the objective of a mission isn't always guaranteed to be the same. In fact, if I loaded up this mod again, went back to the base and talked to Leia, she'd probably give me a completely different mission objective, and so far I've had up to 8 different permutations of what I'm supposed to achieve at the end of a Chibi Rebellion run. Not only that, but the levels that you'll encounter during the course of your mission will also shift and be presented in different configurations, and that's because of this, quite frankly, ingenious hub-style design. For example, this map right here actually features 2 exits. One of them is actually quite easy for me to reach. The other one requires a bit more level exploration. For example, I'll have to defeat the Jawas here and the droids that they can ingeniously construct out of the parts of other droids, fight my way through the snow crawler in the middle, and jump off an elevator on the other side that I'll need to activate. Now, this doesn't mean that one exit is more lucrative to explore than the other. When it comes down to it, it's actually necessary to thoroughly explore all of the maps in any given run of Chibi Rebellion. The reason for this being that going down one route may eventually land you in front of a locked color-coded door, whereas going back and exploring that alternate route may provide you with the key. Naturally, we can't have a Star Wars game without a host of Stormtrooper goons for us to mow down, and to that end you'll also find a large number of Empire installations to fight through. This one in particular is a munitions dump, one containing a very awesome loading robot enemy, one that can actually chuck those giant crates at your face if you're not careful, and those crates also form the key to defeating that particular foe, something that I completely missed first time round because I was just taken completely off guard by how cool it was. But if you attack it directly, the bolts just bounce off its chassis, your character even informing you of the ineffectiveness of your attacks. In fact, you'll need to blow up the crates that the loading bot holds if you want to inflict any real damage on the thing, and that is just a really damn cool touch. This isn't a one-off encounter either, so you'll have plenty of opportunity to refine your loading bot slaying abilities, but it doesn't just stop at the loading bots. You will, in fact, get to fight a few old fan favorites. That's right, you'll get to fight 2-legged AT-STs and the 4-legged AT-ATs. Yep, there's nothing quite like barreling out into the snowfield ready to fight a walker while the imperial theme plays in the background. It's by default cool. Very cool indeed. But when it comes down to the mechanics of fighting a walker such as the AT-ST here, it's largely basic Cyber Demon rules. Shoot at it until it dies. You will have to dodge the occasional grenade thrown at your face, however, so that's always worth looking out for. And when you do eventually whittle the health bar down to 0, you'll have to take care of the pilots, which is a neat little touch. When it comes to dealing with the 4-legged bigger brother of the AT-ST, however, you'll find that the health bar will be significantly larger and take a heck of a lot more effort to bring down, forcing you to call upon the more robust entries in your arsenal, certainly something that I'll cover a little later in this video. In the meantime, however, we're going to grab ourselves some personalized transport in the form of a Tauntaun and make our way to another unique section of level. In fact, this right here is pretty unique in of itself. The Tauntaun sections are pretty much self-contained. You can't use these outside of the sections, they tend to run away, but they do allow you to jump higher, run faster, and access areas that you may not be able to access without them. And it's just testament to the kind of variety that you'll be coming up against here in Chibi Rebellion. There's always something new, always something interesting to do. And this right here is the Minefield, a section that I regard as one of the many puzzle maps within Chibi Rebellion, something that'll present you with a problem, be it an NPC quest, a switch puzzle, or something else to overcome. But in this case, we need to collect snow mice, these adorable little rabbit-looking things that have been bouncing around the levels so far. And yep, you hoover them up, take them with you over to the minefield, and you set them loose. What's stopping them from setting off the mines themselves? I don't know, maybe they're light enough, but the case is, you can set these little adorable buggers loose across the snowfield, and they will go and dig up all of the mines for you, which is really cool. It's a really neat idea. The only downside to this is it takes friggin' forever. There are 20 mines to discover in this minefield, and as you can see, these little things aren't in any rush to dig them up, so you'll be probably twiddling your fingers for a little while they take care of business. And sections like this reveal a particular problem that I have with certain sections of Chibi Rebellion, and that's the effect of just stopping you dead in your tracks every now and again when you really just want to be making progress and moving forward. If there's one thing Chibi Rebellion could certainly do with more of, it's clarity, especially when it comes to completing certain specific tasks. Case in point, this shop I'm about to enter has a smoking panel at the back that I need to repair, but if you approach it with anything other than the fusion cutter that I have out right now, it'll give you a text prompt that just says, "That won't work." And if you're approaching this fresh and you've just loaded it up, you'll assume that you maybe need to collect something that will repair it for you, a specific item maybe, somewhere else around the level, which led to quite a lot of frustrating backtracking and exploring and digging into every goddamn nook and cranny, convinced that I hadn't found something vital to progression. But no, all I needed to do was get out the fusion cutter and play a little bit of a repair minigame. Now, if only the game had given me a little bit more of a hint, a little bit more of a push to use that item, I would have avoided a hell of a lot of frustration. In the grand scope of things, however, most of my issues with Chibi Rebellion tend to fall into the relatively minor bump in the road category, the kind of thing that may not be immediately obvious, but once you've sussed it out after a bit of brain racking, it ceases to be a problem. And after that, you just get to have a colossal amount of fun with the rest of this mod. And I don't use the word colossal lightly. Despite it being chibi and cutesified in some regards, it's hard to deny that the scope of Chibi Rebellion is actually pretty damn huge. I mean, last time I checked, there's about 12 unique scenarios for you to complete here, each of which serviced by a mind-boggling array of submaps. I think each scenario is about 10 maps long, and I've yet to experience every variation. I'm thinking it's going to take me a damn long while to do so, but the joy of Chibi Rebellion is that it's designed to be revisited and replayed. Each scenario that you complete will feed into the next, and the credits that you've acquired and the weapons that you've picked up, you can take with you. Granted, this does have the effect of making successive episodes feel a little easier than the last, while making the earlier episodes feel a little tougher than necessary, but it does lend the mod a nice little sense of progression between episodes, even if the overarching objectives can feel a little disjointed and separate from one another at times. So, in terms of progression, you're not just limited to bringing along whatever weapons you've already acquired on the next mission. No, you can in fact upgrade the roster, and that is done through holocrons, and you can't spend them at that guy. No, you have to go to this bench and press use, which is something that I did by accident. If I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have even known this was a feature until later on. But through this, you can put holocrons in and get bigger guns out, provided you've managed to scrounge enough of them up. They're hidden at various points throughout levels, so it may take a few episodes before you have enough holocrons to get that juicy gun upgrade that you've been craving. Additionally, if you're tenacious enough to track him down, you'll also find the Jawa black market dealer. Now, this guy stocks a lot of interesting things, most notably the Death Star 1 plans for 1,000,000 credits. Yeah, a little pricey, but you can buy additional holocrons, a remote guardian, sensor pack, a shield regenerator, or a utility belt. All of them kind of useful, apart from the Death Star plans, of course, because you'll never be able to afford it, and it would render Rogue One completely inconsequential, but I would heavily recommend the shield regenerator, because the shield in general doesn't really tend to last long under sustained fire. But once you've unlocked that guy, he'll actually turn up back at Chibi Base for ease of access. So how about the weapon upgrades that you can acquire through spending those holocrons at Chibi Base? Well, there's certainly improvement over the base models. This right here is a full auto blaster. It may not be hefty on the damage front, but it certainly has a decent rate of fire. Same goes for the upgraded blaster rifle here, which fires in 3-shot bursts for a much higher chunk of damage. And this is the scattershot rifle, which is pretty interesting. It can do a single heavy focus shot with a long charge up, or you can just do a scattershot blast, which has a much higher rate of fire, and personally, gets you more bang for your buck at close range. The repeating blaster here is a favorite if you like your laser-related DACA, but you gotta be careful over sustained fire lest the gun overheats, and you're gonna be waiting a while before you can use it again. And this is a sniper rifle. Same trouble with overheating, but to a more severe degree, and it's got a very cool name, the Dawn Sorrow. And that's pretty much a lot when it comes to the high-tier weapons you can unlock with holocrons. This right here is the rangefinder, which you may have already seen, which allows you to call in bombing runs, which I really like, by the way. Very useful for dealing with crowds of enemies, or dealing a nice chunk of damage to a big stompy enemy, be it a walker, an AT-AT, or a super whomper like the thing I'm dealing with right now. But all things considered, the weapon selection here is actually pretty subdued in the grand scope of things. It all seems pretty faithful to the source material, the kind of stuff that would fit in just fine with the likes of Dark Forces and Jedi Knight. Personally, I was hoping for a few more, let's say, exotic weapons, especially when it comes to dealing with big kahunas like this, because as you can see, even with the special holocron purchased weapon models, I'm not really doing all that much damage to this big thing. I'm under the impression that this is the kind of boss that you'd need to run away from to restock every now and again before trying to tackle him a little more, but I am a really big fan of the way he picks up riders off the back of those Tauntauns and throws them at you. So, all things considered, how do I feel about Chibi Rebellion? Would I recommend it? Yes, absolutely. Of course I'd recommend it. This is a ridiculously good, ridiculously well-made mod that does a hell of a lot of impressive stuff. It's got more variety than you can shake a lightsaber at, and is just stuffed to the gills with really cool and interesting things. Not to mention Easter eggs such as this, where you can flush Stormtroopers out of the airlock on the Chibi Death Star. What's not to love? And of course there's many more Easter eggs to be found, I just don't want to spoil them because part of the fun is actually discovering them in the first place. Don't get me wrong though, there are certainly things that could be improved about Chibi Rebellion, some creases that could certainly stand to be ironed out. Mainly though, as I mentioned earlier, it just comes down to clarity, making the player aware that they can use things like the fusion cutter to repair those broken panels, letting the player know that they can recharge their shields at the little green glowing tanks that for the longest time I thought were just explosive barrels. They may seem like little inconsequential things, but they greatly affect the smoothness of the experience for the new player. Not everyone is aware of how things operated back in Dark Forces or Jedi Knight. For less patient players out there, these minor frustrations may become roadblocks, causing them to miss out on the rest of this frankly awesome mod, which would be a damn shame. Just before I sign off on this one, make sure you disable Smart Auto Aim as well, because I found myself having a bit of trouble actually fixing these panels. Auto Aim was causing me to not actually be able to hit the prompts, which, as you can imagine, was a bit of a pain in the ass the first few tries. But other than that, I can say I have thoroughly enjoyed my time with Chibi Rebellion, and I'm pretty sure a fair few of you out there will enjoy it too. So if you're interested in giving it a whirl for yourself, the link, as usual, is in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments below, and feel free to suggest any mod you'd like to see me cover in future episodes of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.